farà l'attacco da sopra, perché io e un altro siamo gli unici che scendono, cioè che passano tanto quindi ci avevano trovato diversi posti che erano e quindi niente, mo, visto che comunque cioè, insomma, so più volte che insomma lo diciamo, ma magari si potrebbe, mo se è cominciato a lagnare pure quell'altro che è invecchiato, non ce la fa, e quindi ha detto, poi c'era pure la mia vicina che fa beh, Santa Marinella è vicina, oh, mazza, che cazzo ci vuole? Ci metti, ci sto proprio, manco un'ora. No, ieri ci è andata male al ritorno, io gli ho detto a Carlo che non lasciamo quell'ora vicina, fidate, e invece, cioè, insomma, no, ci siamo sì, erano le 6, perché fanno che al mare, c'è il panico, un'ora esatta in più. Sì, no, l'ora buona per andare via è l'ora vicina, alle 9 va benissimo, ma oppure la mattina, o la mattina presto pure, oppure all'ora di pranzo che fa caldo, però pure quella è efficace. Ormai le so tutte. Però davvero ci vogliono 50 minuti quando appunto. Sì, col treno ci vuole ancora meno. Bella a settembre, non mi sembra, perché pure Santarella era bellissimo. Mi sembra molto meglio. I pesciolini arriva, vedi? Allora c'è sintomo di pulizia. Sì, 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 sì. Perché pure le banche che finiscono. C'era nessuno, poca roba, che io sinceramente preferisco, come ho preferito quella a Tenerife, bellissimo, c'era niente caro, allora aspetta, io ritorno di là di mangiare, a riprepararmi qualcosa, che sto a morire, sono sveglia dalle 8 e niente, rimaniamo domani quando mi passi a raccogliere sempre per le 4 e mezza 5, sì sì sì. Sì, 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 e tanto non so se Carlo c'è, ma io devo solamente aspettare Gabriella perché ormai viene alle 3:30. Va bene, allora ci vediamo per le 4:35. Un bacione. Ciao caro, ciao.
Oh my goodness, you've got your mask
I can't
on.
hear you. We need them.
How are you?
Just a moment.
Okay.
So, Rosalind, as you can see, I can't take off my mask.
Ah!
As you can see, we are at the university.
Great.
Students are connected online, but I can didn't think of connecting it here, but don't worry, I can have any.
Is there a problem with the sound? Can you hear me okay?
We're trying to connect the audio in the room because we didn't think about it because everyone is connected online. But
Okay. Can you hear me, Antonella?
I don't know if we have earphones. I have AirPods, but that cannot work with this computer.
Okay. There's a terrible feedback sound.
In the meantime, other students are connected.
Can people hear me? Can the students hear me? Hi, everybody.
Okay. I just wanted to introduce you
Okay.
because the interpreter is there.
Yes, I'm here. Good morning. Wait,
I can connect.
can you see me?
So I tried from my mobile.
Yes. Hi, Georgia. I can see.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
It takes too much time because it needs to be downloaded. Anyway, don't worry. I just wanted to introduce you. And as you might understand, this is the very first day of reopening at the university, because this is the first time we have the opportunity and the possibility to have face-to-face meetings and teaching and learning sessions. Of course, we left the freedom and chance to everyone to choose if to connect or come here at the university. As you know, many of our students are based in different locations in Italy, so it's not so easy to travel. And anyway, even if this afternoon it's only me and Alessio and Natalia with their taking her class, I really wanted to be, physically sabbatical. No, don't worry, please. So, as I said this morning we had another student in class today, and I'm sure, I'm really confident that from now on, many more will be able to come and to be present. As you can see, I don't know if you can see the room here.
I can see the room, it looks fabulous.
It is completely respected, and so, of course, there's no one at the moment, but anyway, there are signs where you can sit, where you can't, and every one of us has a mask that can be used if there are more people in the room and if we are closer one to the other. But the most important thing is being here and starting. This is this seminar of yours and the series of seminars that we're going to have from now to the end of the fall. Throughout the fall is inserted in this project, the Inclusive Memory Project, which is a university project, and which works on the idea of the object as an inclusive tool, the museum object as an inclusive tool. It is a project that you know well because it was started between from a cooperation between us and the University College of London. So it's really something that was born thanks also to support and cooperation, and that of Ellen Chatterjee, of course, from UCL. There are different departments involved, as you know, and it is an interdisciplinary project, and different seminars will have a different perspective on the subject from now on. It's very, very important, and I'm really glad that you are the first one to start a series at an international level, and you know, it's absolutely vital that we are all together here, working together at the distance and in presence. So I'll leave the word to you. There are different students, maybe some are new, some will attend the class and will listen to you afterwards, so after the session is ended. Some colleagues will be connected on through YouTube, so you know, we'll hopefully have a good audience. So I thank you so much, Rosalind, for being with us, and I leave the floor to you. I don't know if our interpreter wants to give a brief summary of what I said in Italian.
Sì, eccomi. Innanzitutto ringraziamo Rosalind per essere qui con noi oggi. Questo progetto è nato in collaborazione con l'Università Roma 3 e UCL che Rosalind rappresenta, ed è un onore averla qui oggi. È molto importante che sia proprio lei a cominciare la serie di seminari che abbiamo a livello internazionale, e alcuni studenti sono nuovi, altri ci raggiungeranno più tardi e alcuni colleghi ci seguono da YouTube.
Thank you very much. Can I start now? Antonella. Yes, obviously I can start. I don't know if Antonella can hear me. That's the trouble. Antonella, can you hear me? Georgia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good. Well, I'll just go on. I don't know what's happened to Antonella's
Okay.
sound. So a very warm welcome to all of you who are here. I imagine scattered in different parts of Italy. It would be wonderful. I think it looks, I'm just looking it up. It looks as if there are about, I can't see the number, but yes, Oh my goodness, it says there are 17 in the meeting, but I wonder if each of you could just literally say hello and say where you are. Georgia, do you want to translate that?
Yes. Benvenuti a tutti, e immagino che gli studenti siano un po' sparsi in tutta Italia e mi sembra che siate più o meno 17. Vorrei che ognuno di voi potesse salutare e dire da che parte dell'Italia viene.
So I'm just going to go down the list that I can see here of participants. Could we start with Camilla Frattini? Camilla perhaps can't access the opportunity to speak. Shall we go on to Irene Olarju? Irene, are you there? Can you say hello?
Hi, I'm Irene from Cagliari, Sardinia.
Hi, good to hear from you, great. And the next person on the list, sorry,
Io non sento più la professoressa.
Sì, penso ci sia stato un problema di linea.
Sì, perché mi si è bloccata proprio l'immagine, non sento più niente.
Ovviamente sta cercando di entrare. Ora non so se Carlo sei lì?
Hi everybody, I'm so sorry, I cut off for a minute. I'm so sorry, I'm back. I apologize. So thank you very much for the messages in the text box, which I've seen. I see that some of you aren't able to activate your microphones, but thank you to those of you who have introduced yourselves. And Chien Liu, can you say hello? Are you there?
Hello, everyone. I'm here.
Hi.
I'm in Rome.
You're in Rome. Good to see you. Welcome. So let's go on.
You too.
Yeah, thank you so much. Let's go on to Mara Valente. Mara.
Hi, Rosalind. Nice to meet you again.
Hi, Mara. Good to hear from you. Looking forward to hearing more. And the next one I can see is Simone Sanna Bernardini.
Hi, I'm Simone.
Hi, Simone. Welcome. Good to hear your voice. Where are you, Simone?
I'm in Sassari, Sardinia.
Oh, fantastic. I'm sure it's beautiful. I wish I was there. The next one is Nella Aiello.
She's writing in the chat, I think.
Okay, great. Casedo vicino Napoli in Campania. Lovely. So welcome, Nella. Going down the list of participants here. Is there some? There are obviously people I've missed out. If I've missed you out, could you just say hello or write in the chat box?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. I am Lucia from Siena, Italy. Thank you so much. I'm in school, as you can hear from the bell.
Oh, wonderful. Nice to hear from you. Great. Siena is also a lovely place. So I see all these beautiful places that I visited. I'm sick for Italy.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Is there anybody else who hasn't had a chance either to write an introduction in the text box or just say hello?
Hello.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly.
Oh, okay. Hello everyone. I'm Giulia. I'm from Milan.
Great.
I think that I don't have access to the chat, so I'm introducing myself here.
Excellent. Welcome to the session.
Thank you so much.
Is there anybody else? Natalia Chaprini, I think we've heard.
Hi, my name is Natalia. I'm from Rome.
Sorry about my pronunciation.
No, don't worry. From Rome.
It depends, you know.
Excellent. Welcome.
Because there are some who prefer the accent as Natalia, and others that prefer the other kind of accent.
Oh, well, it wasn't a total mistake. That's encouraging. And anybody else just to say hello?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Lucilla from Arezzo, in Tuscany.
Wonderful. I was taught many years ago when I learned a little Italian that they speak the best Italian in Tuscany.
Wow. Yes, fantastic. Thank you. Nice to see you again.
Next person, perhaps Matilde, I see.
Hi, Matilde. I'm from Varese, near to Milan, in Lombardy.
Great. Thank you so much. Welcome to the session.
Thank you.
I think probably perhaps everybody's spoken now. Is there anybody I've left out?
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, I'm Mattia and I'm from Florence.
Oh, beautiful. Welcome, Matthias. I'm getting more and more homesick for Italy, seeing all these places in my mind's eye.
Thank you for being with us.
So, if everybody's had a chance to say hello, I just want to tell you why I did that. The reason is that when you're in a space, whether it's a real space in a seminar room or a virtual space, if you're going to contribute to a session, and I hope you'll all contribute, it's very important to hear your voice in that space at the start, so that you know that you have an identity within the group that's going to be learning. And so that applies to your visitors at a university, or your visitors in a museum. If you can invite them quickly just to say hello and where they're from, it doesn't need to take long. It will enable you to break that ice and to open a discursive learning opportunity, a conversation later. So I'll leave Georgia to translate that now.
Perché abbiamo fatto questo di presentarci e dire da dove veniamo? Perché ritengo che in uno spazio che sia fisico o virtuale è molto importante contribuire e sentire la propria voce, così da darsi un'identità con le altre persone, che sia all'università o anche al museo. Quando si fanno delle attività è importante dire anche solo ciao e da dove si viene, per rompere un po' il ghiaccio e cominciare una conversazione.
Thank you. So now I hope that you had the chance to have a look at the PowerPoint and the resources I sent out ahead of the session, but I'm just going to remind you, do you have the PowerPoint, Georgia?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, I read it.
Excellent. So I'd just like to remind you of what I hope you'll get out of the session, and it is that you will have used your personal experience and therefore in future have the habit of drawing on your personal experience of inquiry, and it could be many different contexts of inquiry, including what we would have done today, which would have been hands-on learning, to inform your design of learning activities for others. That's a bit complicated. That's the first thing. I'll leave Georgia. Sorry, Georgia, it's a bit of a bit long.
No, it's okay. If you want to go on, I can handle it.
Would you like to get that one done first, because that's the first session learning.
Ok,
so,
ok.
Yeah.
Innanzitutto spero che abbiate avuto l'opportunità tutti di guardare il PowerPoint che ho inviato, e nel caso non aveste avuto il tempo, voglio ricordarvi ciò che faremo in questa sessione. La prima cosa è che dopo la sessione sarete in grado di usare la vostra esperienza anche in futuro per creare delle attività di indagine in diversi contesti, e quello che è la stessa cosa che avremmo fatto se avessimo potuto incontrarci e fare delle attività hands-on. E la seconda cosa, anche essere in grado di informare gli altri su queste attività.
Thank you. And the next learning outcome, which I thought was important, is to explain your central decisions, which you make as you design inquiry-based museum learning activities.
Sorry, the microphone. Yeah. E l'altro risultato è essere in grado di spiegare le decisioni che si sono prese e quindi come si è come si sono progettate le attività sulla hands-on learning.
And the reason for adding that action of explanation, to explain, is that very often you will be working in a team, and it's good to think through why you're doing what you're doing.
E la ragione per questa spiegazione è che spesso si lavora in un team, in una squadra, e quindi è necessario sapere spiegare il perché si fa una certa cosa.
And ultimately, you may be in a situation where you're supervising and arranging for the follow-up of the learning activities in museums, and I hope that this session will help you to consider how you might want to do that.
E infine è probabile che vi troviate a supervisionare delle attività hands-on in un museo, e quindi spero di aiutarvi a capire come farlo.
Also, there is a very important set of research studies into following up learning. And that's very important, because we learn best when we distribute our learning opportunities. And that means that we come back to the same themes and deepen them several times. So following up learning activities to achieve that distributed learning is very effective.
Ed inoltre è molto importante la ricerca che si fa sulla supervisionare l'apprendimento, perché di solito noi impariamo in un modo migliore quando abbiamo l'opportunità di distribuire e di tornare a ciò che abbiamo già imparato per avere la possibilità di approfondire dei temi, e quindi ritornare sempre sugli stessi temi e ricordarli è molto importante.
Great, so that's enough from me for now. I hope that some of you had time to prepare your own short presentations. The reason for asking you to do this is that you learn best when you're teaching others.
Quindi questa è la mia parte per ora, spero che abbiate fatto in tempo a preparare le vostre presentazioni, perché di solito impariamo in un modo migliore quando siamo in grado di insegnare agli altri.
Great. So, Antonella, do you think that we can go to the presentations from the groups? Antonella may be there more.
Come closer because I'm here at the
Hi, Antonella.
Hello.
Hi. So,
So
how should we organize the presentations from the participants?
So I don't know. We need to inquire with Mara. Mara, do you know where the presentations are?
Sì, devono intervenire direttamente gli studenti con le slide che hanno preparato.
Okay, so every student is going to share, you know, their screen.
Yes.
And they will make their own introduction. It is very, and their own presentation. It is very important, this session of Rosalind today, because what we are trying to do is to improve and actually work on the possibility to use technology in the most effective way. So this idea of working together and of having Rosalind discuss what the students have reflected on previously is absolutely vital if we wish to, and if we need to use the tools, the devices we have at disposal, and that are absolutely relevant to carry out our work, both as learners in training and learning path, but also as educators. So it's really important that we make profit, I would say, of this opportunity that we have today. So I don't know, Georgia, if you want to summarize very briefly. And then the first group able to present will be asked to work.
Questa sessione con... Scusi, doveva finire?
And to ask for the floor.
Ok, questa sessione con Rosalind è molto importante perché ci dà l'opportunità di migliorare il lavoro che possiamo fare con gli strumenti tecnologici, quindi riuscire a lavorare con la tecnologia nel miglior modo possibile, ed è importante che riusciamo a usare la tecnologia che abbiamo a disposizione anche se non c'è possibile incontrarci. E il primo gruppo, se vuole prendere la parola.
Mara, do you have an idea of who would like to start? And it's very informal. It's not got to be anything long or anything.
Maybe Sanna Simone and Baldetti.
Sì, inizia io.
Okay. Can you see me?
Yes, I can. Excellent.
Okay. Good.
Oh.
I maybe lost his connection. Maybe some other in the group can speak. Lucilla or one of the others.
Simone or Lucilla?
Lucilla?
Stiamo un attimo cercando di recuperare Ken che voleva iniziare la prima parte perlomeno. Non so se possiamo andare avanti col gruppo e poi torniamo noi, cioè con i gruppi e poi possiamo farlo noi dopo, altrimenti iniziamo.
No, iniziate. So please start because I don't know if other groups are ready. So I prefer you to start because and then Rosalind will comment on what you did.
Sì. Condivido. Ok, si vede?
No.
Okay.
Ora?
Here we are.
Sì.
Okay.
Great.
We made it.
Yes.
Also Liu is there, so okay.
Allora, come gruppo abbiamo lavorato su la tazza con piattino e piatto, appunto di questi souvenir celebrativi. Abbiamo visto un po' le immagini, abbiamo cercato di capire che cosa fosse rappresentato in questi oggetti. E siamo partiti dall'individuare appunto la figura che era rappresentata. Una volta appunto individuato un po' il contesto, abbiamo cercato di capire qual era la storia del personaggio rappresentato. E quindi abbiamo capito che si trattava appunto di Edoardo VIII e che questi oggetti erano legati alla sua, come dire, innanzitutto alla sua ascesa al potere, quindi la sua incoronazione, che richiama un po' una pratica molto, molto diffusa per la famiglia reale, che è quella appunto della realizzazione per eventi importanti della famiglia reale, quindi l'incoronazione o matrimoni o cerimonie appunto veramente importanti, la creazione di questi souvenir. Non so se lascio il tempo per
la traduzione, certo, sì.
So first of all, we worked on the British pottery, and we tried to understand what was drawn on these plates, and we tried to figure out what was the context. So we investigated on the history of the person on the plate, and we understood that it was Edward VIII, and these objects are linked to his coronation. And this reminds us to practice that is usually carried out for the royal family during important occasions with the creation of these souvenirs.
Abbiamo quindi cercato informazioni sia sugli oggetti, ma soprattutto sulla figura appunto di Edoardo VIII, scusate, e abbiamo capito che questi oggetti avevano un'importanza particolare data la loro rarità, perché appunto Edoardo VIII ha abdicato praticamente quasi subito dopo la sua diciamo ascesa al potere, e in realtà la sua incoronazione vera e propria non c'è mai stata, nonostante appunto invece i souvenir venissero già prodotti, e questo quindi questo fatto ha bloccato poi la produzione di questi souvenir, rendendo questi esempi particolarmente rari. Abbiamo quindi appunto cercato di capire il contesto nel quale era inserito questo personaggio, e capire quali sono state poi le dinamiche appunto che hanno seguito la sua abdicazione. Abbiamo capito appunto il perché poi della sua abdicazione, quindi ricostruendo un po' la storia che raccontano questi oggetti. Abbiamo poi provato a lavorare su un'attività appunto di didattica per capire come coinvolgere al meglio il pubblico del museo.
Okay. Afterwards, we searched for information about Edward VIII, and we understood that these objects are a rarity because he abdicated shortly after he became king, and so these souvenirs, people stopped the production of these souvenirs, and so they became rare. Then we wanted to understand the context around these objects, so we investigated what happened after his abdication and why he abdicated. So we tried to reconstruct the history around these objects, and then we created a learning activity based on these objects.
Abbiamo ipotizzato quindi di rivolgerci a bambini e bambine della scuola primaria. Abbiamo pensato di dividere il macrogruppo poi in vari gruppi, di modo che ogni gruppo potesse concentrarsi al meglio sugli oggetti. Abbiamo quindi sicuramente pensato di incoraggiare la conversazione, l'osservazione, la discussione all'interno del gruppo, e cosa particolare abbiamo pensato che fosse importante avere delle riproduzioni di questi oggetti, di modo che i bambini potessero osservarli da vicino, maneggiarli e rispondere a delle domande, quindi delle domande un po' suggerite poi dalle figure del museo, e quindi per capire che cosa è secondo loro, capire di cosa è fatto, qual era la sua funzione, capire con loro perché era importante maneggiare, vedere da vicino gli oggetti, e capire con loro un po' la storia delle loro conoscenze pregresse su oggetti, su questi oggetti o su oggetti simili.
We decided that our target are primary school children, and we would divide these children into groups to encourage discussion and reflection on the objects. And then we thought that it is important to have reproductions of these objects for a hands-on activity and to answer children's questions. For example, what is it, what it is made of, what was its function, and also to understand if children had a previous knowledge about the context and the objects.
Dopo aver quindi ragionato, parlato con loro, analizzato gli oggetti che stavamo andando a vedere, abbiamo pensato di approfondire poi il discorso, spiegare loro di che cosa si trattava, partendo proprio dalle loro impressioni, dalle loro idee, e quindi spiegare sia la funzione dell'oggetto in sé, sia il contesto dal quale derivano, al quale erano collegati, per in qualche modo permettere loro di ricordare in maniera vivida questa esperienza. Abbiamo pensato anche a un'attività pratica, quindi la realizzazione di un piatto commemorativo, di un souvenir che li riguardasse, che li rappresentasse. Quindi con la creazione di appunto un piatto commemorativo, utilizzando un piatto di carta riciclabile rigorosamente, nel quale loro devono disegnare il loro ritratto oppure un simbolo, un disegno che li rappresenta, e possono portarlo con sé, portarlo a casa e ricordare quindi questa esperienza.
After analyzing the objects, we decided to deepen the topic and explain in the context and the object to the children, starting from their ideas about the objects. And then to help them remember the experience, we could have another activity where children can make their own plate from a paper plate, for example, and where they can draw themselves or a symbol that they like and take them home with take the object home with them.
Grazie. Abbiamo concluso il nostro lavoro così.
And your presentation, and Rosalind, please.
I'm so amused that you chose these objects in very pleased, because it really illustrated how much assist and support a diverse range of learning.
Can you hear Rosalind, Georgia?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Oh no.
Okay, now I do.
Excellent. Somebody must have muted me, I think. Okay, so I'll say again, thank you very much for the presentation. It was really good and interesting. And I was so pleased that somebody chose this set of objects.
Grazie per la presentazione, è stata molto interessante e sono contenta che qualcuno abbia scelto questo set di oggetti.
And the reason that I was pleased is that it does give a very strong example of opportunities for lateral thinking around an object.
E penso che sia importante perché illustra, è un esempio di opportunità di pensiero laterale riguardo a un oggetto.
And of course, these objects were wasted because they were made for what we might call a non-coronation. The coronation is a very elaborate ceremony that we have in when our kings become anointed. Literally, it's a religious ceremony when they become the monarch of the country.
Questi oggetti sono stati sprecati in effetti perché è avvenuta quella che si può definire una non incoronazione. Nel Regno Unito c'è questa tradizione, è una cerimonia religiosa molto importante quando un re diventa sovrano.
So I think your activity was very engaging for your students, putting them into groups, but I was interested that you said that they couldn't touch the real objects. And do you think it would be possible for them to touch the real objects? Could you organize that?
Okay, I'm one of the group.
Yes.
I'm offline. I don't know why. Anyway, this kind of objects we can find out online. We can buy it because I found out 2 plates and 3 marks used 199 US dollars. So yes, it's very particularly interesting because this object is the coronation that never was.
Yes.
So for the to keep everything from going to West, it was decided to hold the coronation of his brother and successor George VI on the same date. So we can find out the same date, and also the king, the George VI.
Yes.
So anyway, he can find out the market, usually on sale.
That's really interesting that you found that. So actually these objects are not irreplaceable, and I would want to put thick foam on a table, perhaps ask the children to wear gloves, but I'd want them to touch the real objects.
Yes, yeah, it's very interesting because it's not very expensive. We can buy it, so the children can touch it, and they can know also the history behind this object.
Yes.
Because behind this object, it's about a love story of a king.
Exactly.
So
I think that you've set up a very nice set of objects for your target group, the primary school. Georgia, you may want to translate now because we've had quite a lot in English.
Yes. Questi oggetti si possono trovare online, però sono molto costosi, quindi probabilmente se si facesse un'attività con i bambini su questi oggetti sarebbe importante farlo con cautela, quindi indossando dei guanti e stando molto attenti. Però l'importanza di poter toccare, vedere, analizzare questi oggetti e anche conoscere la storia dietro questi oggetti, perché alla fine è una storia d'amore, diciamo.
So I would just like you to think, if you had a teacher saying, this lesson is about an English king who abdicated, and the children had to sit and listen, would they learn as much as they would learn from touching the object and researching it themselves? That is, going online like you did and finding out more. Would they learn as much if they were sitting in their chairs listening to the teacher?
I think it's kind of two kinds of education. One is for adults, one is for children. Because in that time, the woman, this woman, Wallace Simpson, he has twice divorced. So the British noble family, they cannot accept. But in this now 21st century, the different situation. So we can see the prince, I don't remember the name, he married a divorced woman.
Harry.
Right? So they accept.
Prince Harry.
Prince Harry, yes. So this is for the adult. We can talk about the different times. We have different mental. And for children, I think another way we can give the plate, black plate, the children can paint their memory date for the birthday or for the fast for the Mother Day, even that is. It's the same way to memory, yes. The special day. So two kinds of education. Yes. That's my opinion.
Great.
Thank you.
Do you want to translate, Georgia, and then I'll see if anybody else wants to say anything about this way of learning in this example.
La domanda era se si facesse una lezione con dei bambini e si parlasse a loro di un re che ha abdicato, avrebbero lo stesso livello di apprendimento che avrebbero invece con un'attività hands-on, e la risposta è stata che ci sono due approcci di insegnamento, un approccio per gli adulti, parlando della storia di Re Edoardo VIII, Wallis Simpson, la donna che ha sposato, aveva già 2 divorzi alle spalle e allora in quell'epoca non era accettata dalla famiglia reale inglese. Adesso invece nel XXI secolo, come abbiamo visto, le cose sono cambiate perché il principe Harry ha potuto sposare una donna che era già divorziata, quindi questa sarebbe un'attività per gli adulti. Invece per i bambini, come è già stato detto, sarebbe più utile un'attività ricreativa in cui possono disegnare su dei piattini finti, ovviamente, un disegno per delle occasioni come la festa della mamma, ad esempio. Quindi sono 2 approcci diversi.
I think also, if you were looking at older learners in the sense of after primary school, say secondary school or even university, you can ask for a critical analysis of the history around this object. I think that would be very productive from the point of view that you could question the religious tenets about the power of, in our case, it's the Anglican Church, it's not the Catholic Church, in preventing somebody from being a monarch who married a divorced woman. You can question that. You can question also, or at least put up as a topic for discussion, the huge cost of the coronation ceremony, which, as you said, was used for George VI, and also why people love it, why people in Britain still love the royal family, and why tourists come and see the royal family. All these sort of things are generated by discussions around that object. So I'm just suggesting these things to help you to extend your idea of what can be done with a single object. And at UCL, we have students who have an object all term, for one term, and they can go and see the object whenever they want. It's based on touch. It has to be kept in the museum because it's a precious object, but they research it all term. So that's the idea of distributed learning. They go back and learn more, and it's just fantastic. And Carlo says there are more presentations. I'm probably talking too much, so I'm sorry, Carlo. So Georgia, if you could just translate what I've said.
Okay.
Sorry.
Altre idee per investigare questi oggetti con ragazzi più grandi, magari delle superiori o dell'università, sarebbe intavolare una discussione sull'analisi critica della storia che è intorno a questi oggetti, quindi ad esempio parlare della religione, della Chiesa anglicana d'Inghilterra, o il costo che c'è attorno ad una cerimonia di incoronazione, o anche perché ancora oggi le persone amano, in Inghilterra ovviamente, amano così tanto la famiglia reale, e suggerisco queste idee per estendere le attività che si possono fare con anche un solo oggetto. Ad esempio a UCL gli studenti hanno la possibilità di studiare un oggetto che va conservato in un museo perché è molto prezioso, però hanno l'opportunità di studiarlo per addirittura un semestre, e questa è l'idea che gira attorno all'apprendimento distributivo.
Thank you so much. The next presentation, apologies for talking too much. Mara, can you suggest who should go next?
Next.
I don't know if there is someone else. I don't know.
Is anybody ready to go with their PowerPoint?
Like they tell us, I think there's maybe those who have to present have some problems. So I'll go and tell something related to the way and the model we are trying to put forward and use during this kind of sessions with different lectures from different kind of environments during this fall session. First of all, I would like to thank those who, because you know, Rosalind, today we have a group of new students. So yes. They just entered the system, just someone just 1 hour ago. so it's a good opportunity to start with you, and we really welcome those who are there for the first time. Ecco, vi ringrazio, prima che Giorgia traduca, ringrazio veramente quelli che oggi hanno per la prima volta avuto accesso al nostro sistema e partecipano alla prima lezione proprio con Rosalind. Vado avanti in italiano, Giorgia, poi magari tu fai una sintesi. Quindi prima di tutto ci tengo a ringraziarli e dar loro il benvenuto. Avremo, appunto, avete visto la lezione, loro stamattina in realtà alcuni hanno seguito su YouTube, altri non sono riusciti, non sono entrati ancora su Teams proprio perché era il primo giorno e dovevano avere determinate abilitazioni. Ma i contenuti e insomma il tema del nostro incontro di questa mattina è assolutamente in linea con gli argomenti di cui appunto abbiamo parlato, prendendo spunto dal lavoro che hanno presentato i vostri colleghi. E questo perché, dicevamo, il tema della narrazione dell'oggetto è un tema che ci aiuta a prendere coscienza della realtà nella quale siamo inseriti, e quindi queste motivazioni che Rosalind sottolineava rispetto agli oggetti che i vostri colleghi hanno individuato samente sono coerenti e rappresentano un modo di pensare in modo sociale gli oggetti museali. L'altro aspetto che volevo sottolineare, perché credo che sia importante soprattutto per chi appunto si unisce a noi da oggi in poi, è che lavoriamo, e come dicevo all'inizio, lavoriamo in modo che la possibilità di partecipazione e di interazione sia massimizzata. E perché questo accada abbiamo studiato e proposto ai nostri colleghi che partecipano a questi incontri di sollecitare la riflessione degli studenti, dei partecipanti, attraverso dei materiali che vengono resi disponibili con un po' di anticipo. Ovviamente chi ha iniziato oggi avrà modo di farlo, insomma, nelle prossime sessioni. Quindi avendo a disposizione questi materiali sul tema dell'incontro, riflettere su questi materiali attraverso un task, un compito che il docente assegna, e quindi discuterne durante la sessione live che si avvia con il docente. Ovviamente avete la possibilità di interagire con il docente e quindi di porre domande e anche di seguire l'attività dopo che si è realizzata, chiedendo ulteriori informazioni, chiarimenti e quant'altro. Tutto questo ovviamente serve perché l'organizzazione dei nostri percorsi è sempre finalizzata ad uno sviluppo di determinate conoscenze, ma soprattutto di determinate capacità. Mi fermo un attimo così Giorgia dà una sintesi in inglese per Rosalind.
First of all, I want to welcome our new students. This morning we began our activities that are very similar, the contents and the topic are very similar to those who are discussing today. And this is because the central idea is that the narrative and the objects help us to think about our reality, and what you were saying about investigating objects reflect the way we think about those objects. Another aspect that is important is that we want to stimulate interaction and participation, because this gives students the opportunity to challenge themselves and to start discussions also with the professors and their colleagues, and because they have the opportunity to ask questions and follow activities. So it is also useful because the aim is to develop knowledge.
Great.
Knowledge and skills.
Have we got somebody else who's ready to present?
We fear that those who were supposed to present are not able to connect, Rosalind.
Okay. So in that case, I will just, I think I can share my screen and go through one of these slides and explain this process that group went.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great.
Can perhaps chip in.
The arrow on the top right.
It says only meeting organizers and presenters can share. So it says that I'm not able to share.
Can help you, yeah.
So Carlo, can you make me into a meeting organizer?
Okay, I'm trying to do it, but I already do it, but maybe Teams have some limitation.
Well, it's just that the icon for sharing the screen is in the setting where it says only meeting organizers and presenters can share. So I'm obviously not classified as an organizer or a presenter.
You can try now.
Now I can do it. Excellent.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to share this particular screen.
Perfect. I can see your screen.
That's not the right screen. I'm just going to go back and I have two screens, so that's why it's showing the wrong screen. But I'll just move this one over. Can you now see a PowerPoint presentation on the screen?
Yeah, we can see it actually.
Can you see a slide which says overview suggestion for planning?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah, you can perfectly see it.
Right. So I'm just going to go through these suggestions for planning learning sessions, and I'll relate it to what your colleagues did, which was simply wonderful. And if you're working in a museum, you can use these. So after you've selected the topic or the area to be explored, that's when you choose the object. So the first step is to do that. And then you really go into considering with the museum curators, or if you're a curator, you'll be helping people into what objects could support that explorative learning. So you had a wonderful example of exploring the learner's previous knowledge, and then you can explore any misunderstandings. You had that example of looking at an activity where the students were able to talk about what they already knew. And that's because we base our new learning on what we've learnt before. We can't learn without having a foundation to build on. So then you've planned your preparation for engagement with the objects. You need to allow quite a lot of time for that engagement with the object, so that you can encourage the observation of the different characteristics. And you had a very good set of things in the example we saw for asking a series of questions about the object, and for discussing, for reflecting through learning activities based around that object. And I thought that that was very, very effective. So getting people to do their own journey of discovery is the best way of helping them to deepen their learning, so that they find the facts themselves, as indeed the presenters did in preparation for their session. And then, as we mentioned, following up with a range of activities. In this case, we had a creative activity, creating your own commemorative plate, but you could use virtual images. You could, with university students, you could ask them to read research articles, perhaps write a summary of those, or indeed critique things, have discussions, presentations, all these things where the learners produce something in connection with the object, which enables them to demonstrate their understanding so that you can assess it. So it's, in a way, a performance. When you ask people to perform around their learning, it's your opportunity to assess their understanding and help them with any gaps. And this idea of leaving space for the absorption of new concepts and knowledge is very important. And that, again, takes us back to this theme that we've mentioned several times of distributed learning, that you get several opportunities to come back to things. Probably each time you come back more deeply. So that's quite a lot to take in, but I'll leave it to Georgia to go through that slide. I'll leave it up, and perhaps Georgia can talk through it so that you've got the text there to think, and you can relate that to what Sana, Simone, Liu and Lucilla did in their presentation.
Ora verranno illustrati dei suggerimenti su come pianificare le sessioni di apprendimento in relazione alla presentazione che abbiamo appena visto. Quindi il primo punto, selezionare un argomento o un'area da investigare, come hanno fatto i partecipanti alla prima presentazione. Il secondo, considerare l'oggetto che può sostenere appunto l'apprendimento nel museo o anche virtualmente. Il terzo punto, esplorare la conoscenza pregressa dei discenti, quindi come hanno già fatto nella presentazione, fare attività per capire ciò che gli studenti sanno già riguardo all'oggetto o al contesto, e perché di solito basiamo le nostre conoscenze, anche quelle nuove, su ciò che già sappiamo, quindi per approfondire la conoscenza. Il quarto punto è molto importante e va speso del tempo sulla preparazione dell'attività, su come lavorare con questi oggetti. Il quinto punto è, come hanno fatto chi ha presentato chi ha fatto la presentazione, incoraggiare la discussione, la riflessione attraverso attività sull'oggetto. È un modo molto efficace per imparare in prima persona e anche avere la possibilità di ricordare ciò che si è imparato. Anche il sesto punto è molto importante, quindi supervisionare e seguire le attività attraverso immagini virtuali, e se si parla di studenti universitari, ad esempio attraverso articoli di ricerca o discussioni o presentazioni per dimostrare che hanno capito quello che gli è stato insegnato, e questo è un'opportunità per aiutarli. E l'ultimo punto, lasciare spazio ai discenti di capire i nuovi concetti e ciò che hanno appena imparato, è un esempio importante di apprendimento distributivo, come dicevamo prima, quindi ogni volta che si ristudia qualcosa che si è già studiato, la memoria è sempre migliore, quindi ci aiuta a ricordare meglio quello che abbiamo già imparato.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Georgia. I'm going to stop sharing now and go back to all of you to ask if you've got any questions at all about what I've done so far. Normally, I would ask you to have a chat in groups about what you thought, because sometimes we need to discuss before we can think of questions. We need to be a bit analytical together, and it is that interaction with others which enables us to be analytical. But at the moment, I haven't prepared a breakout room for you, you know, which is a wonderful thing to do with the technology, because I thought that the session would be, the highlight of the session would be your presentations, which we could then discuss and analyze together. But the technology's got in the way of that. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them, no matter what they are. No question is a stupid question. And Georgia, thank you, if you could translate that.
Se qualcuno ha delle domande su ciò che è appena stato detto, non abbia paura, non esiti a chiedere, perché non c'è nessuna domanda, è una domanda stupida. Normalmente si farebbe una discussione in gruppi, ma dato che la tecnologia in questo momento non ce lo permette, potete cogliere l'occasione di fare qualsiasi domanda.
So, hi, anybody got a question? Natalia.
No, it's me. It's Antonella, because I'm talking through Natalia's computer.
Okay.
So if because of this problem with the audio, but I really support if anyone is here can make questions, especially those who are here for the first time. So, is it clear what we have been discussing through this first hour and a half, almost hour and a half today? Or would you like Rosalind to explain more, or to tell us more about object-based learning, about hands-on, how this concept, you know, moved and originated and was more and more, you know, cared about by educators in the field of museum studies, but in a wide and also, you know, interdisciplinary way, especially at UCL. No one is speaking, so I think Rosalind can.
I can. What I can do is I can go back to the rest of my presentation and explain it in a bit more detail, and also take up your question about the origins and value, more general questions about the origins and value of object-based learning, of touching objects in museums. So I can definitely do that for you. But everybody would be most welcome to, even if you just write something in the chat box.
Exactly.
You can write what you're thinking or your questions. Liu's got her hand up, I see. Liu, did you have a question?
Yes, I have a question.
Great.
I found out that most of the museum in the world, they have educator. They speak English or the language, local language. Why I didn't find any museum they have the educator for the immigrations, other languages. So I'm Chinese. I live in Rome, but I major in the history of art. I found out a lot of Chinese, they are interested in Italian history, Italian art, but they don't have the occasion to know more. So I put some video, YouTube online. I speak in Chinese, the history of Italy or the art of Italy. So I think they want to learn also. So I think the museum have to think about, because immigrations, there are a lot. So that is my question. Why the museum, they didn't do that? Thank you.
I think it's a really important and good question. And I've traveled a lot and I've lived in a lot of different countries. And I'm afraid to say that wherever I've been, I think that there's been too strong a concentration on the English language. And that's not only in the United Kingdom or in the United States, both places I've lived, but in other countries where the languages that information about museum objects are translated into tend to be Western languages. I think it's very wrong. But I do think that Chinese languages are mostly, I know there are many languages in China, and I think mostly people focus on Mandarin. But of course, there are other languages that one should have. And I think, Liu, your initiative of putting things on YouTube in your own language is excellent. And it's definitely something that museums need to do more work on. But you seem to be taking the initiative yourself, and I commend you for that. Georgia.
Yes. La domanda era del perché la maggior parte dei musei in Italia, ma anche nel mondo, si focalizzano soprattutto sull'inglese o sulla lingua locale e non tengono conto dell'immigrazione, ad esempio. Ad esempio, Liu è cinese, studia storia dell'arte, però purtroppo altre persone non hanno la stessa opportunità che lei, quindi ha deciso di mettere su YouTube dei video che parlano dell'Italia e dell'arte anche in cinese, per rendere partecipi anche persone della sua nazionalità. E quindi la domanda era: perché i musei non cercano di fare più attenzione a questo proposito? E Rosalind ha viaggiato molto e ha vissuto in molti paesi nel mondo, e anche lei ha notato che in tutto il mondo, non solo nei paesi che parlano inglese come il Regno Unito o negli Stati Uniti, si concentrano, i musei hanno spiegazioni, ad esempio, o guide che parlano inglese principalmente, e questo è un problema, perché i musei dovrebbero tenere conto anche delle lingue anche delle minoranze, ad esempio, e quindi l'iniziativa di Liu è eccellente e Rosalind le ha fatto i complimenti per questo.
I do think that English has gone very far beyond being the language of the countries where it's spoken. It's become what we call a lingua franca. It's become an international language, certainly for the academic world and the artistic world. So you have artists from all over the world coming to, for instance, London, but also to the United States to play. And it's natural for them all, although they have multiple languages, to speak English together, not as a sign of the dominance, really, of the United States, but more as a language that lots of people learn as their first foreign language. I think it's important for those of us whose first language is English to be very aware of that and self-critical.
L'inglese è diventato quello che chiamiamo lingua franca, quindi è una delle lingue parlate al mondo e soprattutto è la lingua veicolare, soprattutto nel mondo accademico e per gli artisti che vengono a Londra, ma non solo, anche vanno negli Stati Uniti per fare il loro lavoro o studiare, e questo è qualcosa che è diventato normale, non tanto per una dominanza di un paese in particolare, ma più che altro per la diffusione della lingua, ed è qualcosa che le persone madrelingua inglesi devono pensare a fondo e farsi un'autocritica.
In fact, I've done some academic work on academics using English as their language of academic discourse, and that was very interesting, because there were actually quite a lot of Italian academics who took part in that research, and they said that it was easier for them to talk about their discipline and their research in their discipline in English than in their own first language.
Ho svolto anche un lavoro accademico sul discorso accademico in inglese principalmente, ed è stato interessante vedere come anche molti insegnanti italiani, ad esempio, hanno più facilità a parlare delle loro discipline in inglese invece che nella loro lingua madre.
So that was a bit of a step to the side. I'm sorry about that. I've gone back to my PowerPoint now. I'll just, I think I've stopped sharing the screen. I'll just have to make sure I can share the screen with you again. I'll do that now. And I'll go back to my PowerPoint. So I'm just going to look at the whole notion in your context of effective learning in the museum, at some background here quickly before I get on to object-based learning. And this is really something which informs the development of object-based learning. And it is the problem that students everywhere, all over the world, and also lifelong learners, have tests, have exams, and as the world changes so fast, it's more necessary than ever for people to continue learning. But unfortunately, very often, those responsible for teaching don't read the research into effective learning. There's a lot of work about the lack of a bridge between us researchers and the teachers, the people responsible for helping people to learn. And actually that bridge is too weak, and teachers very often don't help students to learn in the most effective way. And object-based learning is an extremely effective way of learning. Why? Because it involves your senses. You're touching an object, it's an important experience, it affects your touch, it may have a special smell of the object if it's particularly old. You're looking at it, you're using your sight. If you learn, for instance, about old musical instruments, you can play them. It affects your hearing too, you can hear too. And as all these different senses are involved, the connections to the learning built up in the brain are very strong. So that strand of learning will be deep. And you need to share with your learners, with your museum visitors, with the students, why this way of learning is good, because they would do better if they know why they're learning as they are and if they know how to learn. So I leave Georgia to explain that now.
Quindi tornando al PowerPoint, parliamo della nozione di apprendimento efficace nel museo, e il problema che si affronta ovunque in tutto il mondo è che gli studenti spesso fanno degli esami, ma anche gli adulti che continuano a imparare durante tutta la loro vita non sanno come farlo, e c'è una mancanza di comunicazione fra i formatori e gli insegnanti, per cui ad esempio gli insegnanti non leggono le ricerche sull'apprendimento efficace, e se lo fanno non sono in grado di aiutare gli studenti ad approcciarsi ad un apprendimento nel modo più efficace possibile. Quindi è importante introdurre le attività di osservazione di un oggetto, queste hands-on activities, perché coinvolgono tutti i sensi, ad esempio il tocco, il tatto, perché si tocca l'oggetto, l'odore se si tratta di un oggetto antico, ad esempio, la vista, se si analizza un vecchio strumento, ad esempio si ha la possibilità di provarlo, quindi l'udito viene coinvolto, e quindi tutti questi sensi che vengono coinvolti aiutano la memoria a rafforzarsi, e il nostro cervello si rafforza, e quindi è importante condividere con i visitatori di un museo, ad esempio, questo tipo di attività, perché è ottimo ed è il modo migliore per imparare.
Thank you. So when we started doing, I'll just go on to the next slide. So basically, we decided that as regards object-based learning, we needed more research to engage students, learners in that research, to help them to learn in the best possible way and wherever possible with that hands-on experience. But we needed to do research to be able to explain to them how that worked. And when Helen and I started with this research into object-based learning in the museums in our own university, UCL, there was really no research into learning with objects. Helen had done research into patients in hospitals having visits with collections from museums and touching them and talking about them with a representative of the museum in the hospital. And it was discovered that that contributed so much to their well-being that it actually shortened their stay in hospital, because the experience of touching the objects and engaging with somebody was so empowering to people that psychologically their well-being was enhanced. So that research was very promising, and we wanted to carry that over to the effectiveness of learning from the perspective of the university students, so how the university students themselves saw that learning. Sorry, Georgia.
Yes. Quando abbiamo iniziato a ricercare questo tipo di attività, io e Ellen ci siamo accorte che non c'era nessun tipo di ricerca a riguardo, quindi abbiamo cominciato dalla nostra università, che è UCL. Ellen inizialmente aveva già fatto degli esperimenti con delle collezioni museali insieme a dei pazienti dell'ospedale, e i risultati erano stati molto promettenti, perché questi pazienti erano riusciti a recuperare meglio la loro salute e ad avere un benessere psicologico migliore. Quindi si era deciso di continuare questa ricerca con gli studenti universitari.
Yeah. So what we did was, sorry, did somebody say something? Has anybody got a question? Did somebody want to put a question? No, I think we're okay. So I'll go on. So what we did was we asked the students about their perception of object-based learning, and we asked them to consider how object-based learning compared to participating in a lecture where you just sit and listen in a passive way. And I think it was about 65% of the students found that their learning was more effective with object-based learning, although this was a very new way of learning at the time, and we probably hadn't perfected our approach to it. But the students found that object-based learning helped them to learn very complex ideas. And so that very careful research, which we then continued and published in a book also, Engaging the Senses in Object-Based Learning. I'll just get it and show it to you. When we did that, we felt that it was so much worth promoting. And I think that that early work resulted in a lot of dissemination of the idea of object-based learning. And it's quite common in museums now that they have these sessions of hands-on learning. They select objects for people to touch. Georgia, just get
yes. Quindi abbiamo chiesto agli studenti quale fosse la loro percezione di questo tipo di attività e di considerare come sarebbe stato diverso il loro apprendimento da lavorare con gli oggetti fisici ad una lezione semplicemente passiva. E sorprendentemente il 65% degli studenti aveva risposto che effettivamente era più efficace il poter lavorare con gli oggetti, anche se al tempo era un'attività nuova che non si era mai vista prima, ma che aiutava loro ad imparare ed ad assimilare meglio i concetti. E così si è continuato a ricercare questo modello, e Rosalind e Ellen hanno scritto un libro che poi condividerà con noi, e pensa che questo tipo di lavoro adesso si sia disseminato molto velocemente, perché nei musei adesso è molto comune trovare questo tipo di attività.
So this is a recent book by Helen Chatterjee. I have mentioned these things in the very short chapter that I wrote for Antonella quite recently, which I sent for you to have a look at if you want to read something yourself. But this book was published in 2015 here by Helen Chatterjee and her colleague Leonie Hannon, who worked with me when I set up the first research project with Helen when I was still working at UCL full time. It's because I'm part time now. So I think it's very interesting, that book. And as you can see, it's called Engaging the Senses, but this is particularly about university learning, object-based learning in higher education. So if you're very interested in that, I recommend this book. So we've talked about the power of object-based learning and the evidence that we've collected to show that the student experience, the learner experience, is improved by hands-on experience with objects. Giorgia.
Questo libro ne parla brevemente Rosalind nel capitolo che ha mandato per questa sessione, nel libro di Antonella Poce. E il libro di Ellen Chatterjee è stato pubblicato nel 2015 e è interessante perché si chiama Coinvolgere i sensi per gli studenti universitari, per i corsi degli studenti universitari, ed è consigliato se si è interessati a questo argomento.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to go on to talk about other things which are impactful, and it's all to do with how we learn. And very, very often people do this. They just think that they're learning if they read and reread a text. Perhaps they highlight sections, perhaps they underline sections, and this is all an illusion of learning. And learning in this way, doing a quick read through of something, underlining it, is really not deep engagement. So we need to realize that this is what we might call illusory learning, and that this is very short term. We really need to become more engaged to learn in a profound and long-lasting and insightful way. And object-based learning is one of those ways of learning in depth. So, Giorgia.
Yes. Quindi la domanda è come impariamo. Spesso le persone pensano che sia abbastanza leggere o rileggere o sottolineare i testi, ma questa in realtà è un'illusione di apprendimento, perché in questi metodi in cui si cerca di imparare in realtà sono a breve termine, e quindi abbiamo bisogno di essere più coinvolti, e questo può essere fatto proprio attraverso la hands-on learning.
Great, thank you. So if you can give students a hands-on experience and get them to explore for themselves, then they will later on, when they need it, be able to trigger that memory because they've had this hands-on experience. And we talked several times earlier on about coming back to the object, coming back to your learning from the object, so that you have to retrieve your memories. And if you can come back at least 3 times, that's very beneficial, with a space between learning, because that literally, looking at how the brain works and how we learn, we have a memory trace. We have the brain build up connections, and the stronger that memory trace, the smaller the chances are that we will forget what we've learned. So linking to that hands-on experience, to the different senses, leads to a very strong form of learning where we could purposefully engage with analytical and critical thinking around the object, so that students learn to think for themselves. And that's a very important aspect of object-based learning. So ideally, the object is presented to the students and they have to do the detective work, the finding out about the object themselves. as indeed you did in the exercise about the commemorative cup and plates on Edward VIII. Georgia.
Yes. Quindi è importante riuscire a tornare sull'oggetto, manipolarlo per recuperare la memoria, i ricordi e la memoria che si hanno su questo oggetto. Almeno 3 volte sarebbe l'ideale, perché collegando diversi sensi con il ricordo di questo oggetto, questo aiuta a rafforzare la memoria e il ricordo che abbiamo di questo oggetto, sviluppare un pensiero critico sull'oggetto, sulla ricerca che si è fatta, e questo è importante che lo facciano gli studenti e che gli studenti lo facciano da soli, perché solo investigando sull'oggetto per conto loro sono in grado poi di ricordarsi meglio quello che hanno imparato.
Okay, I've just seen that somebody would like to come in and do a presentation. Is that right? Is there somebody ready to do a presentation? In which case I'll hand over.
Well, hello, I'm Cinzia, but I wanted just to give you a question.
Yes, great.
Okay. What are the differences between hands-on learning and object-based learning, if there are differences, or less are the same?
Yes.
Thank you.
That's a very good question. When you look up object-based learning on the internet or in an academic search machine, you have to make sure you add the word museums, because object-based learning is also learning to do with digital objects, with perhaps certain types of software. So we are talking about object-based learning, which ideally is hands-on. There are different types of object-based learning. Sometimes there are facilities in museums for people to try to replicate, to make ancient objects themselves. For instance, the sort of things that people made when we were living in caves, that sort of thing. So that is a form of object-based learning where you create your own object. But when I speak about hands-on learning, it is learning from touching objects in museums. So I'm sorry, that was rather a long explanation, but I think it's very important, if you're going to become interested in this extremely important field, that you know how to search for the research into it. And when you do that, it's important to avoid getting into the digital area rather than into the museum area. So it's important to have object-based learning or learning from objects in museums as your search term.
Okay, thank you.
George, do you think you can translate that for me?
La domanda era se c'è una differenza fra hands-on e object-based, quindi apprendimento basato sugli oggetti. La risposta è stata che è importante, quando si cerca ad esempio su internet l'apprendimento basato sugli oggetti, di aggiungere, di specificare che si tratta di un'attività per i musei, perché c'è anche un apprendimento basato sugli oggetti nell'area digitale, quindi noi stiamo parlando dei musei, e questo può essere fatto sia virtualmente che replicando degli oggetti preesistenti. Quindi quando si parla di hands-on si parla di apprendimento attraverso il tatto vero e proprio di un oggetto, e quindi è importante sapere la differenza fra i due quando si va a investigare questo argomento.
Thank you very much. Have you got a follow-up question to that? Do you want to add anything? Has that answered your question?
Yes, it's fine. Thanks a lot.
Good, thank you. So going on, So working in groups, as our first presentation from the group highlighted very nicely, they were going to put the children who were going to learn, the primary school children, into groups, and that was Sana, Simone and Liu and Lucilla. The advantage of doing that is that you can ask and attempt to answer the questions around the materials together, and that's very productive. It's memorable and it's stimulating and it's exciting, and you had in that presentation a really nice set of questions for the learners to ask around those objects, why and how questions, and those work really well. You may then have an information sheet, and the learners may be able to compare the data in the information sheet with what they guessed, and that's very nice, because it's much more exciting than somebody standing there telling you about the object. It's much better for you to guess about the object with others, to explore and share your previous knowledge to see whether you can guess what the object is and what it's for. So perhaps we should just do that, Georgia, because it's quite complicated before I go on.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, I think if you do it, it's good.
Ok. Un'altra cosa molto interessante che è emerso dalla presentazione è il gruppo di domande che sono state fatte ai ragazzi, quindi ad esempio perché e come dell'oggetto o del contesto. E un'altra cosa che si potrebbe fare è aggiungere un foglio di informazioni con prima le supposizioni che i ragazzi o i bambini possono scrivere su ciò che pensano che possa essere l'oggetto o il contesto, e poi vedere effettivamente di cosa si tratta e essere in grado di condividere le loro conoscenze pregresse.
Thank you. And is that sorry? Okay. And around the object, if the learner has really difficult concepts to understand, the object will help them, and they can themselves find additional information. So say they don't understand a particularly complex concept to do with, say, sociology or to do with art. You know, the same of all this applies also to paintings. Although you may not be able to touch them, you could touch a sculpture probably, but the additional information that the learner can find, such as short videos or explanations, will help them in conjunction with touching the object to cross that, what we call threshold, to cross into this new area where they have really allowed their brain to gain insight into new concepts through interacting with the object and additional materials. And they can test their understanding by being invited to explain to other people. When you try to explain something to somebody else, then you know whether you really understand it. And if you haven't got somebody there to explain, you can write your explanation and then check it against the material you're learning. So I think those steps of finding the additional, the hands-on learning, the additional information, and the explanation to somebody else are really powerful for deep and profound learning.
Poi si può proseguire spiegando se ad esempio c'è qualche concetto difficile da capire relativo alla sociologia o anche all'arte stessa. È possibile aiutarsi con dei piccoli video, delle spiegazioni, delle definizioni per riuscire a capire la nuova area di conoscenza o nuovi concetti. E poi è importante testare la propria comprensione spiegando ad altri ciò che si è capito, o se non c'è nessun sono a disposizione scrivendo la spiegazione e poi andando a controllare una fonte a riguardo, perché è solo quando riusciamo a spiegare agli altri ciò che abbiamo appreso è il momento in cui abbiamo capito veramente.
Thank you. So this is all about retrieving and recalling. So it's more about this learning theory and the idea that the memory of the object will be strong, as we've already said, because touch as well as sight are involved. And we have found this in our research. And that's really the roots of the object-based learning. Really strength of the experience helping the learners to learn. And from the point of view of the cognitive, that to do with thinking, the cognitive processes in the brain, the connections which are formed from learning through touch, learning through discussion, learning through your own exploration, that memory trace will be stronger. So it's really worthwhile.
Qua si parla sempre di recuperare la memoria riguardo all'oggetto, ricordare ciò che si è imparato. Quindi il fatto che questo rappresenti proprio la radice dell'apprendimento basato sull'oggetto e che l'esperienza viene rafforzata dalla poter toccare e vedere l'oggetto coinvolto, ed è stato dimostrato anche dalle ricerche che questo processo rafforza l'apprendimento e rendendo la memoria più forte.
So we've already talked a lot about distributive learning, about repeating. So I'm not going to go over that again. Sorry, I'm just going to miss that out. And I think there's another thing that's very important to acquaint your object-based learners with, and that is to communicate to them what you're doing and why you're doing it. And this is really a message for the students, talking to them, for the learners. If you engage with object-based learning, you'll be likely to be able to gain a more deeper insight into the object and the connected history of the object or the context, depending on the learning outcomes you want to achieve. And it's important to realize in that context that your intellectual ability is not static, and this is a strong message to the new students at master's level. Sometimes you feel, oh, master's level, oh my goodness, it's so challenging. What am I going to do? How am I going to do it? But ability is not static. The more you challenge your brain, the more you'll be able to do. So if you're able to focus your study and use these deep approaches to learning, perhaps creating your own learning objects, whatever suits you, learning will definitely improve and your brain will become more agile. So the more you learn, the more you learn, and the more you learn, the more you can learn. So deep learning, and that really happens through object-based learning with the touch, the discussion, the exploration. It is like a workout for the brain. So the museums with the objects which people can touch, they're like a gym. It's like a beautiful gym for the brain, and exercising your brain makes it more effective. So if you're ever in a position to arrange object-based learning in an exciting way for museum visitors, you will be giving their brain a workout. And you really ought to tell them that and explain it to them. Explain to learners what you're doing and why you're doing it.
È importante comunicare agli studenti perché e come imparare. perché questa attività è un po' come se fosse un allenamento per il nostro cervello, e soprattutto mi riferisco ad esempio ai nuovi studenti che possono pensare che il master sia difficile, qualcosa di nuovo, ma ricordate che l'intelletto e l'abilità non sono qualcosa di statico, più si fa, più si impara e più si è capaci di fare. Quindi è importante focalizzare lo studio e basandosi su questi approcci, perché questo non migliorerà solo i vostri risultati accademici, ma renderà anche il vostro cervello più agile e appunto, come diceva Rosalind, è proprio un allenamento per il cervello ed è importante quando si fanno delle attività, ad esempio per dei visitatori al museo, dir loro, far presente a loro che è importante imparare e soprattutto spiegargli come farlo per renderlo possibile e più efficace.
Great, thank you. So I think we're almost running out of time. I think that's ending on a very happy note here, that you can tell learners that they can do well, because through learning about learning, they know how to do well. And that increases the chances of actually doing well, because self-belief, visualizing yourself succeeding, has a very positive influence on outcomes. So I think you can work with this object-based learning and be sure, because it's evidence-based, that it works. And if you want to enhance your performance, for instance, if you're going to give a lecture, it really helps to imagine yourself giving a successful lecture, and it will enhance your performance. So let's end on this upbeat note of self-efficacy, of knowing that you can succeed through immersing yourself and immersing your learners with object-based learning, and that in its turn will help you to enhance performance.
E per finire con una nota positiva, è importante far sapere ai discenti che possono fare bene, e credere in se stessi è molto importante. Visualizzare se stessi quando si ha successo ha una influenza positiva sui risultati. Ad esempio, se bisogna fare una lezione oppure un'attività in un museo per degli studenti, è utile focalizzarsi sul fare bene, perché questo può migliorare la propria performance.
Great, thank you so much, Georgia. Thank you. I'm going to shut down now, because I know that I was meant to end about now, and Antonella, is this all right? Has anybody got any questions to finish off?
Se qualcuno ha delle domande può farle.
If anybody does have any follow-up questions, because sometimes questions come to your mind later, do feel free to send me a mail. I'll give you my mail address, and I really would love to hear from you if you have any questions. I know that there may be more presenters who wanted to present, and I'm so sorry that you weren't able to. I don't know if we can somehow share your ideas, but this is my mail address for you if you have any questions to follow up. But I really enjoyed the presentation we saw, and it was such fun to hear the very creative way that you had approached it. So thank you for that. And thank you for listening. I'm sorry that I spoke so much. I always think teacher talking time is not good, but there it is. Next time you can speak more.
Se qualcuno avesse delle domande può inviare delle mail a Rosalind senza problemi, e le dispiace che non ci sia stato tempo per altre presentazioni, ma è stata molto bella la presentazione che abbiamo visto e molto utile sull'argomento che abbiamo trattato oggi.
I'd like to wish you all the very, very best, everybody, and take care. And I suppose, Antonella, are you there?
No, Rosalind. She has leave the lesson.
Okay. Lovely
Yes,
to hear from you, Georgia. Thank you so very much for your interpretation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mara.
Thank you very much,
for your
Rosalind.
support.
Thank you.
Lovely to be in touch with you. I wish I could see you in real life, perhaps next year.
Yes, we see the next year in Rome.
Keep well. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.